Who's ready for the August 2025 Repot With Me? I asked you all to send me some questions and discussion topics, and you did not disappoint as usual. Let's dive into it. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me, it's tropical houseplants. So yes, this is going to be the August repot with me, and it's a chance as always to sit down, repot some plants, and catch up with all of you. As I just mentioned, I asked for some questions, and as always, you did not disappoint. There's going to be some planty questions, there's going to be a mixture of planty and personal questions together, and also some personal questions, and I will be going through them in that order, because if anybody doesn't want to hear the personal answers, that is absolutely fine. I am not offended if you're just here for the plants. That's absolutely fine with me. So, as always, let me scoot you down below and get all the unflattering angles on me whilst we start the repot. Okay, I've scooted you down low as always on all of the flattering angles. But yes, there's a few plants that I want to repot today. Most of these are from my propagation box because I need to stay on top of that. So there is a Anthurium magnificum, if I'm not mistaken. Am I the only one that puts things in propagation boxes and doesn't ever label them and they're all just strewn? I know I'm not the only one. Don't lie. And then you pick them out and I'm just like, these all look the same. What are they? Obviously there's certain things that look different. So there's a begonia, there's a syngonium, and there's two anthuriums. And very excitingly, I think, if I am not mistaken, my Anthurium erythromoides, which I cut up into smaller chunks, is coming back. It's taking its time. It's only grown like leaf nodes at the moment. There's no roots coming out of it. I'm just like, you need to root first. It might even not be an Anthurium vitarifolia. Anthurium erythromoides. It might be something else. And I do have some labels there. I do not know. I shall see. But anyway, let's start with the syngonium, shall we? Because that's nice and easy, and I've tried growing this a few times and I keep chopping and propping it and hoping that I can do it better the next time around. So this is the Syngonium red spot, I think. It wasn't a particularly expensive plant when I bought it recently, and by recently I mean it's probably been about a year now. The mother plant has died off originally, and then I had propagates from there and that was doing better, and then it died off again. For me, that has got to be one of my most temperamental syngoniums. So I don't know if I'm going to have better luck with this, but as always, I need to like pick off as much of the sphagnum moss as possible. I know this came up, and I can't remember which video it was, where certain people were surprised because people were repotting and leaving all of the sphagnum moss on the roots, and that could definitely lead towards root rot. I get it. There's also sometimes that you can try and get as much of that sphagnum moss off as possible, but sometimes you can't do that without destroying delicate roots. So, which is why I'm not looking at you at the moment. I am paying attention to what I am doing, because I don't, whilst I snap a bit of a root off, but it should be enough. It's got some decent-ish roots there. But yes, let's get started. I will be potting this up. Let's see. I've always struggled with this plant in terms of soil media, and I've struggled growing this in regular houseplant soil mix. I've struggled growing this in Anthurium soil mix, which was very airy because I thought it was rooting out. So I have got Soil Ninja's Monstera. Is this the Monstera one? Monstera and Philodendron mix. So I'm going to try it in that. But let's start off with the first question as well, shall we? So the first question, and again, I'll do all the planty ones first. In the middle bit, there's going to be some planty / personal ones, and at the very end, there'll be the personal ones. If you don't want to be there for that, that's absolutely fine. So first question is, which of my house plants have bloomed this summer? So I like it a lot. The obvious one is that nearly every single one of my more mature anthuriums have bloomed, and I've chopped off the inflorescence because I was not in any headspace this year, at least, to be doing pollination. At least not for my houseplants. I was that weirdo that was hand pollinating most of my fruit trees, but considering that all of them have had fruits pretty much this year, I did okay with that one. But so that's one section of plants that did do well in terms of blooms. In terms of blooms that I kept on, I kept the blooms on my Hoya Crinkle 8. It bloomed. It usually does, to be fair, every year without fail. My Hoya DS70, I think it is, the one with all the numbers and letters, that bloomed. What else? My Hoya Publicalis. I can't take credit for it, and I'm looking at it at the top there. The Bulbophyllum that I got recently from Grow Tropicals came with one bloom and the other one on the way, and that has bloomed. And then, that's a good question actually, because I was going to show you this. Let me show you. This is one of the Bulbophyllums that I bought last year, around this time last year. I don't know if you can see that little dangly bit that's happening if I wobble it. There you go. You can kind of see it. That is a bloom. And when I was growing this, I'm just like, oh, it looks like it's coming out of the sphagnum moss. I'm just like, oh, the sphagnum moss is really happy and green. It's going to bloom. No, it's a bloom from this Bulbophyllum. So fingers crossed for me that it doesn't reject it and it keeps going. The other big one that I've had blooms on, and I've kept it because I bought it specifically for the blooms, and I've kept the blooms going for a long time, is my Anthurium andrianum. And I'll see if I can find a picture and put it here. I've never mentioned it because it sits in my kitchen. If you've seen my house tour, which I did the house, the garden, and the allotment, and I'll link it somewhere on this video, you'll see what I mean. It's got really interesting kind of reddish white blooms. We know it's not technically the bloom, but you know what I mean. What passes as flowers on those types of anthuriums. And I'm so proud of myself that I've not only just been able to keep it happy enough and blooming, but also kept getting more and more blooms. And what I've done, before anybody asks, is every time I water it, and it gets watered quite frequently, I've not touched it from the growers media because I know I can replace it if I need to. It wasn't a particularly expensive plant, but I wanted a pop of color in like my kitchen diner bit instead of cut blooms. Every time I water that one, I add a few drops of an orchid fertilizer that is only for blooms. And it has done beautifully, because with that one, I'm not so fussed about the leaves. I want more of the blooms, and it's done really, really well. So yes. Hopefully that answers your question. This is the Syngonium red spot, all potted up, and now I need to find a place for it to live. But I've got more areas now with grow lights, so I'm hoping this might go and live by a grow light somewhere, so that should keep it happier. Right, which one should we do next? And actually, let's do another question. Very apt that this wasn't planned. Somebody was asking, why does nobody collect Syngoniums? There's so many pretty ones. I 100% agree. Obviously, this one is one that a lot of people were after. It was really expensive and then it got really cheap. I've grown the neon. I've never grown the butterfly one, I think. I can't remember which one. It's the one with the green on the dark green on the outside and the lighter bits on the inside. I've currently got the strawberry milk. I've got one, oh, and I can never remember the name, that's kind of mainly green and you get splashes of variegation and pink on it. I've got that one, I'll see if I can put the name. The Albo I've got the one with the kind of very long, difficult to pronounce name, and again, I'll put it here. And I've got the Syngonium Maria. I've always got some Syngoniums going in my space at any given time. Ironically enough, the one that I've struggled with the most, and I only tried it once and I'm not willing to try it again because it didn't excite me, but that was just me, by the way. I know a lot of people love this, is the Syngonium Mojito. It's okay, it looks a bit sick to me, but also it just didn't grow particularly easy. I agree with you. I do not understand why more people don't go for Syngoniums. I'm looking at it, the Chia Pens. And maybe it's that. Maybe it's the fact that the leaf shape, even though there might be different colors that kind of happen with it, I think a lot of people just like, oh, an arrow leaf, technically. The erythrophyllum was erythrophyllum. The Lanocarty Road one, the one with the red backs and the very deep green, that was cool. I want to get that back into my collection. I don't know. I don't understand with this one because they had their moment a few years ago where everybody was into Syngoniums and then all of a sudden everybody just kind of stopped. I'm assuming it might be because, and I find it ridiculous that maybe if that's the reason why people have given up is that there's not enough variation because there's so many different colors and even leaf structures as well. The Chia Pens is different from any other Syngonium and you can get some interesting ones. I don't know. Maybe it's because by and large they tend to be easy. And I know that's a sweeping generalization there. Maybe that's what it is and people are looking for more of a challenge. I don't know. If anybody knows, or maybe anybody that used to have loads of Syngoniums and don't have them anymore, do let me and the person who asked this question know down below. I'd be very curious. Good question for the next one coming up as well. They're all good questions. I keep saying this in all my videos. I always laugh at myself in the editing. I'm just like, oh, I've said good question again. I've said they're all good questions. Right, the next one I'm going to be repotting is a propagation of, and I've kind of snapped it a bit. You can kind of see it there because these things are so sensitive. The Begonia Amphioxus, because they'll occasionally die on me, they'll grow back, and I've always got props going from them, so next question is, from Instagram, will I ever import again? If so, what's on my wish list? The answer is yes, 100% I will import again soon. I've not had necessarily a bad experience. I got a bit annoyed with the new process of Equigenera, but that was more of a me than them thing. Do I think they can be a bit more transparent in terms of their time frames on their website? Yes, they used to be, but I don't know if that caused them problems and that's why they removed it. I get the impression that they're doing a lot more, at least for the international ones. I'm not talking about the European one because unfortunately Brexit and we can't get any of the European Equigenera stuff here. So we here need to buy this from Equigenera in Ecuador, like everybody else. And I'm wondering whether or not when they redid their website, so it was as simple as that. I've moved this into a Monstera and Philodendron mix. Hopefully this will do okay. That's the most moisture retentive one that I've got. But as I always keep saying with a lot of the begonias, it's a common misconception that they need very dense soil. I find that they can appreciate, and the last time I grew this was in an anthurium soil mix and it did fine. But yes, with Equigenera, it might just be the new process, and maybe when they had it on their website, it caused them issues. But I think a lot more of what they do now, I don't know if it's so much from the website. I think they do a lot of lives. They're always on my Instagram doing lives. So I'm wondering whether or not that's just made them super busy, and that's where they get most of their income. So they focus on that now. Possibly. But do I have things on my wish list that I want to get from them? 100%. And I cannot remember the whole list, but I'll give you some highlights on the side here of things that I was planning on ordering on my last order, which didn't happen. For the people that maybe didn't see that video, I was planning on doing an order and I left it because I thought I was being smart and just kind of going, I'm going to order it like the end of May or beginning of June so I can get it in the summer, or I think I was going to do it April or May just so I knew it was going to take a month or two and then I was going to get it in the summer, and I'm just like, great, growing season. And then by the time I kind of reached out to them and there was some issues with them coming and responding back to me, again, they might just be busy. I don't like bashing businesses, if that makes sense. They probably have reasons. But they came back to me and they're just like, oh yes, the next delivery. Because I'm just like, when is the next delivery? Thinking, oh, you know what, it might be a month or two just so I've got some awareness. They're like, September. And I'm just like, that's 3 to 4 months away. That's a lot. Considering that I think on their website, they still say we do deliveries every month, which might be true. But if the lead time is 4 months, let people know that, potentially. Just saying. Like, we're going to need to handle your order for 3 to 4 months before we send it to you on our regular monthly send. So there is that. And I know before anybody says I can go to one of their pop-ups and do this, but unfortunately for me, they don't have an awful lot of them that happen anywhere near me. And it just feels like a lot to drive for 3 to 4 hours there and 3 to 4 hours back to go and pick up some plants. So that's a me problem, it's not a them problem. But yes, to answer your question, I will still be importing. And yes, I do have an extensive list of things that I want. My wish list never ends. Where I'm going to put all of this, I don't know. But next question. Oh, hi. You know who you are. The question is, why do my water props always rot? I don't know. Why do I think this is more of a joking question, because I'm pretty sure you probably know how to fix this, but I'll kind of go into more detail for everybody else. If you struggle with your water propagations, I would say a couple of things that have worked with me, and I know this isn't going to be something that everybody's going to be able to do, is one, change your water weekly at a minimum. Weekly at a minimum. Always get a cutting from a pothos in your water propagations. It will help it root out faster, and I found that those props generally will have less issues than I do. Keep in mind, I'm looking at some water props that I've got now that I just like, does anybody else do this when they're cutting off a plant? They're just like, I'm just going to chop this off and just shove it in some water, and then you get like these big buckets of water or vases or containers filled with water and all these random different cuttings in them rooting for months on end, and they basically just end up living in there. Anybody else? Just me? I have not changed the water on those, but I know when I was struggling to keep them from rotting, I would do that. Also, give it some decent light. The other big thing that I would say, especially if you're prone to getting algae in your water, for however aesthetic, and I get that there's a lot of people that are very aesthetic within our community, this is not me bashing them, you like your clear vessels, so does algae, especially if you're giving it loads of light. So sometimes opaque containers, and even if you don't, if all you've got is clear glass, nobody's going to like me when I say this, either put them in a cache pot, which is the more aesthetic way of doing it, or wrap them in tinfoil, because I'm weird. But it makes it dark, because remember, with a lot of these plants, their roots are, and unless it's very specific plants and they need their roots to photosynthesize, like maybe some orchids and phalaenopsis, they're growing in the dark as well. So I find that when I give them a darker environment, they tend to do better. And that's part of the secret, is the faster they can root and you can get them out of the water, the less of a chance there's going to be of rot. Also, I've said this, and I think everybody else has said this, don't let the roots, the water roots, get way too large. It tends to be a lot harder for the plants to then adjust to whatever media you're adding them to. Yes, if you move them into a semi-hydro mix, that transition tends to be easier, but if you want to move them into a soil type mix, I would say don't let them get more, I don't know, like inches or centimeters. Like centimeters, probably no more than like 5 to 10 centimeters. I'm like a dude, obviously I can't measure like anything like that. But yeah, you make sure they don't get too long, because it takes them a longer time to adjust. That's the other thing. If you want to try something different and you're worried and you want to go like that bit of an extra mile, you can get something called a water bubbler, or an air stone, I think it's called, with a little device that you plug in, and it just constantly inserts bubbles and new kind of air into the water, which avoids some of the issues, and that you can usually get in aquarium type supply stores. So those are the things that have worked for me. Also, I will add, do not put any form of fertilizer, amendment, or anything like that. Just my personal experience with this, just straight up water is fine. These plants do not need anything like that to be in their water permanently with them whilst they're trying to root. Let them do their own thing. They do not, if they haven't got any roots, they do not need to be fertilized. When you move them into whatever they're going to be growing, then you can wait for 2 to 3 weeks and then start fertilizing. Let them adjust. Don't go straight into a new media and then douse them with essentially a whole bunch of chemicals, even if it is organic. This is still stuff that they've not had if you're just growing them in plain water. So give them some time to adjust to their new environment before you change something else, which is that addition of the fertilizer. But yeah, so let's move on to repotting as something else. Is it? Oh, last 2 plants, I think. Yes. So I only had 4 to do. Let me kind of start with the other question as well, because this is long. Say hi, Memo. Hope you're doing well. I am. Thank you for asking. What Hoyas do you think are best to begin with? They like the fact that I display the plants in my house. They look quite natural, and I don't use grow lights within my house environment. I do here. There's 1 or 2 grow lights that I do have in my house, but they tend to be for the bigger things like my bird of paradise. Sorry, I'm also like, I need a phone because otherwise I'm not going to remember this. Thanks for all the kind words about maintaining my plants and the vegetables and the pets. It is a lot. See what I mean? The people that have seen that tour, the big tour of everything, the house, the allotment, the garden, the pets, you'll understand now when I say it's a lot. But love from France, love back to France. But back to your question in terms of what Hoyas do I think are best to begin with. It will be the ones a lot of people that you can find quite easily. I will talk from my experiences, and this is not for everybody, but, and this might shock a few people, I would not, under any circumstances, recommend the Hoya Bella. I started with the Hoya Bella. It was one of the first Hoyas that I had. And it's supposed to be easier for people that tend to be overwaterers. They tend to need more frequent moisture around their roots. I killed that plant so quickly, especially when I didn't know what I was doing. So for me, and a lot of people are just like, you need to try them again. I will at some point, but it doesn't excite me enough as a Hoya to want to give it another try. Watch me end up getting one again just out of pure spite this potentially winter. And so that's one. The other one I would say, and I'll start with the ones to avoid first. Again, based on my experiences, these are going to be different for everybody. We can all disagree on this. I'm just telling you what I've experienced. The Hoya, I think it's a Hoya carnosa, the Hindu rope, basically. Do not do that to yourself. They grow very, very slowly. They won't give you feedback fast enough before they start having issues, at least in my experience. And mealybugs. You will accept that with Hoyas, at some point or another, you're going to have to deal with mealybugs. You don't want to be doing that to yourself with a Hoya compacta, that's it, not just the Hindu rope. I also don't know if that's offensive to call it a Hindu rope, but the Hoya compacta, Hoya carnosa compacta, beautiful as it is, and I did grow it okay for X amount of time, but I will say it's too much of a mealybug magnet and you cannot get into the nooks and crannies of those leaves easily. So for that reason and that reason alone, I would say try to avoid it if at all possible, just purely because it's likely to cause you issues, basically. Now, which ones should you get? The Crinkle 8 I've had great success with. And I'll give you some kind of oddball ones because not everybody's going to be talking about these. The Crinkle 8 was one. The other one is the Pubicalyx, and I will say with that one, it's going to take a while. Mine took a very long time to bloom, and I don't know if that's normal. The Hoya australis lisa, or the Hoya australis, if you can just get the green one, grows like a weed, and relatively easy to care for. I don't think what else. Those are the big ones. Start with those first. If you want something a bit more unique, the Linearis I found was okay to grow as well. Yeah, those are the ones that I can think of. The ones that you can kind of get a bit more easily and a bit more readily available in most plant stores and things like that. Start with them, see if you're happy with them, and then move on to the more kind of unique ones. Probably not what you wanted to hear from me. I'm assuming you wanted me to suggest something a bit more unique. And I'll put a few here as well, like, because I need to have a think of them. I'll probably do that whilst editing. Just because, yeah, some of them can be easy, but start first with the more straightforward ones, which generally don't tend to have as many problems, and then go from there, really. But sorry, this is the plant that I'm repotting. Remember the one that rotted? And let me just hide my face. This is the Anthurium magnificum crossed with luxurians, or luxurians crossed with magnificum, I can't remember now. Rooted out like mad. So this will be going in. I'm partially burying the stem because of the way that this thing has grown. Actually, do I just keep it slightly outside? Because some of this is rotted. Give me a sec. I'll let me grab some snips and take the rot off. There was a tiny bit of rot because of the where it was in where the cutting was before, but it's growing quite happily, so I don't want to stress it out too much. And this way around, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that resting on the top of the soil level, and that should make it a bit more robust. But Anthurium soil mix, obviously for this one, it goes, I would hope now without saying, because it's an Anthurium and there's also been issues with this one in the past. So let's hope that I can do it better this time around. I'm also giving it these new kind of arrowed tower pots that I've got recently, which tend to be great for air circulation around the plant, and hopefully that should keep it a bit happier. Let me just get some more of that rootage covered. And with this one, I've learnt my lesson. I'm going to let it dry out a bit more before I water it, and that should be fine. And see if I can bring this back from the dead. I did enjoy growing this plant, so I'm hoping it will do well for me again. So we shall see. Let's see if I bring this out ever so slightly more. I want to make sure that that cut end is not like in the soil level, and also gives me a place to grow the plant out a bit when it's ready to go onto a moss pole, because this is one of the plants that I think the only reason why it survived as an Anthurium that was struggling was the moss pole, because it managed to keep some of the roots. Eventually I managed to rot out those ones as well, but it's because the plant was so super stressed. But hopefully this will do better. Let me put it down. Okay, let's have a look at some new questions. Oh, and this one is also somebody that I know. Hi, this is from Instagram. You'll understand who you are when you hear the question. What to do with your plant collection when you're moving overseas? Firstly, sorry, I've been meaning to kind of message you and say congrats. I saw that that is happening. Congratulations. I hope that all goes well. And I know that it's a stressful time, so I'm hoping things go as smoothly as they can possibly go. And I was wondering what's going to happen to your collection. I don't know. It's the honest answer to your question. Like, what do you do with your plant collection when moving overseas? I don't know. Find somebody who's as into plants as you are and see if they'll care it for you. Possibly somebody in Belgium, I think. If they'll take your plants. Maybe somebody close. The person in Belgium is going to kill me. I'm sorry. But yeah, I don't know. It's something that I've always kind of questioned. I'm just like, what would I do if I have to move? Because at some point or another, my parents aren't getting any younger, and my parents are, I don't want to say old, nobody's old, but they're getting on in years, and there's going to be a point where, and all the Greeks will appreciate this, where I'm probably going to have to travel backwards and forwards between here and Greece a bit more frequently, and I really do not know what's going to happen then with my plants. It might be that I pause for a bit with my plants, and this might be, by the way, hopefully years in the future. Might be that I pause a bit with my plants and maybe gift them out to people, and maybe keep a handful of plants, and then it's a lot easier for me to ask somebody to come and water 5 or 6 plants. I don't know. If my plan goes to plan, if that makes sense, what I'm hoping is if I do get a bit of a small holding, and so for the people, I don't know if it's, small holding is a bit more of an international thing, but I'll explain. Like a bigger house with a bit of land, and I'll have some farm animals on. So I'll probably have a few more chickens. I might get some goats as well then, possibly a donkey. It's not going to be something that I'm ever going to be selling the stuff that I'm producing from the farm animals to anybody else, but it'll be more for my benefit. At that point, and if I do still have this huge collection and it's going to be a conservatory, I probably won't be able to do all of that on my own, but hopefully I'll be able to hire like maybe a retired farmhand to help a bit with this. And I'm hoping if that is the case, and this all happens around the time when I need to be flying backwards and forwards, that I can then tell the person, you know what, whilst you're also doing the animals and the plants in the garden or the vegetables in the garden, do you mind doing a quick water for the plants? And it might just be a bit easier then, because that person will be a bit more in tune with both animal life and kind of plants. Even if I need to show them a bit more about tropical plants versus plants in the garden, they'll have the basic knowledge there. So that's a very unique situation to me. But to your question, if you want to keep your collection, could you potentially, and depending on how long you're away for, could you potentially, if you've got planty friends, could you almost do like a, either see if they'll care for your plants and they've got the space, most of us don't, or if you can gift the plants to them with the proviso that they're a bit more like insurance plants with you, and then maybe when you, by the time you come back, they allow you to take some cuttings, so you've got babies from your original plants and maybe start again. I don't know, but it's a thing. It's a thing. Do let me know when you figure out what you're going to do. I'm very, very curious. Very, very curious. But yes, again, congrats on the new adventures. Then next one is newbie 2 anthuriums. Good timing when we like repotting a whole bunch of anthuriums. Newbie 2 anthuriums, and have been soaking up all the tea from me and Alice. Ooh, Alice. Alice? Who's Alice? I will look into that. I probably know who you mean by Alice, but I just need to like. My brain is not functioning whilst I try not to break the table. My brain is not functioning. It's a Sunday morning. My question problem is, and she's sure that this might be the gazillionth time that I've got this, is how to prevent overwatering. This person is a hovering plant mum and I struggle. Any helps would be truly appreciated. There's a person who also commented, and I saw that comment underneath yours, fully agree with what they were saying. So clear pots, always a good idea. Pots with holes, if you can't get ones that are ready made, you can get soldering iron, like I think the comment said exactly this, and poke some holes in so you can kind of see what's happening. The other thing that I will say, and I'm glad that I started my anthurium journey that way and I've come back into soil mixes now, is semi-hydro, something like pond. I've never had good experiences with leca, but that's just me. I don't think there's anything wrong with leca. But something like leca, something like semi-hydro mixes. The one thing that I have learned over the years with that one is look at the root. If you're going to move them into semi-hydro, the size that you want to go with. So leca, big elements with big holes in them, big roots. So anthuriums with chunky roots. Then if you've got kind of medium-sized roots, medium towards thick, you go for a coarse mix of semi-hydro, so like bigger pond particles, if that makes sense. If you've then got anthuriums, because some anthuriums have got much thinner roots, still thicker than the average begonia, but thin for an anthurium, go for something like the regular pond, the smaller particles. That's something I've learned along the way, but actually that helped me a lot. That helped me a lot. The other thing that I will say is, there's a large edict online about not letting anthuriums ever go dry. A lot of the times I will wait with most of my anthuriums until they go dry, especially in the winter when they're not actively growing. whether they're in semi-hydro or whether or not they're in a soil mix, I will let them go dry. I will quickly caveat that and say, I will not let an anthurium, where is it? Say this anthurium that I've just repotted, I will not let it go fully dry and sit in dry, like arid, it's like the desert, it's parched for days on end. I will monitor it closely and you'll kind of figure this out as you go along, especially if you're just starting and you don't have as many yet, of, okay, this has only just gone dry, this is time for me to water. You can maybe push it for another day if it's the winter and they're really not doing very much. But again, that's the other big one. Adjust, adjust, adjust. We all cause so many issues, specifically to our anthuriums, around this transitional period of the year. And I'm talking about the Northern Hemisphere when we're moving from summer towards autumn, because the watering needs to drop. And I did that gradually last year. I should have been a bit more absolute with it and just gone, no, 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 it just needs to go from summer watering to winter watering almost overnight, maybe a tiny bit. So I'll give you context rather than me just kind of spouting things. If this was getting watered every 3 to 4 days in the summer, roughly, or getting checked and then watered, in the winter, in the depth of winters, I might know from last year that this needs watering every 14 days. I probably won't go from 3 to 4 days to 14 days immediately. There's still going to be a bit of a transition, but it'll be 3 to 4 days to maybe 7 days or 10 days. And then when you get deeper into the winter, remember to bring it back to that original 14, because there was a reason why that 14 was there. Adjust, obviously, if you see that the plant is desperately needing water, but yeah, that's my big one. I would say err on the side of caution as an overwaterer. The other thing I would say is, and the reason why I was mentioning semi-hydro is, it's a lot easier with an overwaterer, especially if you've got clear pots, to see what's happening. If you've got semi-hydro, because that's hard to tell when it's dry, is when it's wet, you'll see condensation most of the time on the inside of a clear plastic pot. The moment that you stop seeing that condensation and the top bit looks dry, the top bit will look drier sooner than the bottom bit, which is why it's great to have the clear pots for the semi-hydro. That's the point that you want to be watering. And try to avoid any, like even with semi-hydro in clear pots, try to avoid using a reservoir. You don't need to. You can grow them as if they're growing in soil. It just means you'll water them a bit more frequently in the summer. Start them, especially if you're in the Northern Hemisphere like I am at the moment, start them in something like semi-hydro now and water them like regular house plants to let all the water drip out. Do not let them sit in water. And by the summer, if you've got a lot of the roots that are coming out and maybe they've found a tiny puddle of water underneath them and they've started to do that, then move them towards a reservoir. And again, be very careful with the transitional period, because by the time that you look at transitional periods, I found out the hard way with a lot of anthuriums, even the ones that have had reservoirs over the whole of summer, I let those reservoirs fully dry out and don't fill them during the winter months. Just my 2 cents. Some people might disagree, but it's worked for me. Right, let's have a look. I think that's all the planty questions. I have a bit of a sip of my coffee. Okay, there's one plant left, so I might just go through a few of these questions and then get to the last 2 fully personal questions, and I'll repot that quickly. These are a mix of plant and personal ones. So the question was from Instagram, what's the most challenging thing I've had to do in my life, and what was it plant related? I'll tell you the plant related one because that's nice and simple. Moving house. Moving house, and also even when I was redoing the conservatory, and I think there's a video that I did a while back when that happened, from the wooden conservatory to this conservatory now, because all of these plants needed to move into the house for a few days, and then all of these plants needed to move back out. It was great because I got to reorganize and do a very, very deep clean of the space between all that. But the move was definitely the hardest thing I had to do. And I was very fortunate in all the moves that I had, mainly because I was moving large collections from a rental to a rental. So that was nice and straightforward. A lot of the times I might have started the contract on the new rental 1 or 2 days or maybe a week before my other one ended, if I could afford to do that. And it gave me that cushion to be able to move everything myself, because I'm old enough now that moving houses is a bit more of a challenge. I've moved houses so many times in my life. A bit of a nomadic family generally. My family works in tourism, so we've traveled a lot, just for pleasure, but also for work for many, many years. But I use moving companies now just because it's easier. I'm fortunate enough that I can afford them. I don't obviously go for anything stupidly expensive, but there's one company that I've used for all my moves here, and I've been super happy with them. They've been great. But a lot of the moving companies will not touch. It's definitely not this size of houseplants. Also, you might not want them to because things might get destroyed, but they will move, like, bizarrely enough, a lot of them will move garden plants as long as they're in pots. I'm just like, well, it's the same, but okay. So I'll do that a day or two before. And even with this place, I bought this place when I was still in a rental place. This got bought a month before I moved into it, so I had time to transition it a bit easier. The next move is going to be a more traditional, sold a house, bought a house, moving. And apparently, I've not had to do this yet in the UK. Apparently, everything needs to happen like the same day. And I'm just like, oh. So I found somebody that I know who's very graciously got a large conservatory that they don't use for plants. They're not a planty person. They are, but they don't have plants in their conservatory. Who I'm going to have to move all of my plants into their conservatory for a day or two so that the whole house move can happen, and then go back and pick up the plants from there. So there's more stress to the plants, but it's the easiest way I can do it. Otherwise, I'm going to be going mad on trying to move these all on moving day. Personal challenge was around the time that I started a channel. So this is a very good question that's made me think. Around the time I started the channel, I don't know if I've ever spoken about this. It was during the pandemic. So I was furloughed, and for people that didn't have furloughs in their country during the pandemic, it's when you would be no longer needed at work. You were not fired from work, but you would, still get paid. The government would pay part of your salary, so you weren't left with nothing, but you didn't have to physically be, and the business didn't have to pay you the salary, so it wasn't an extra cost on them. So there was that. I think it was something along those lines. But around that time is, at the same time as that was happening, I started a side hustle, which was fully unrelated to the work that I was doing for the business that I was working with. And I didn't tell them because I didn't think I needed to tell them. I didn't remember what my contract said. Long story short, they found out. They basically tried to shove me out. I'm pretty sure it wasn't done in a fully HR compliant way, because the reasoning they gave, and by their own processes, I think it was only gross misconduct that they could get rid of you without following an HR process. But they're like, oh, gross breach of trust. And I'm just like, yeah, but that's not a thing. Anyway, at least as far as I'm aware. I could have fought it. It was a very emotional time of my life, whilst, by the way, I was still running the business. Karma is a great thing, because that business that I was in was toxic. It was one of the businesses, and I'm not going to name names, it was one of the businesses that tout about how great their culture is. One thing I've learned over years of working in businesses, if a business is going on and on and on about how good their culture is, 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, that is a toxic environment to work with. And I'm going to just leave it at that. But then my other business, the side hustle, became my main business now. And the good thing was I was able to continue that on and pretty much make the same. I had no downtime, made the same salary I was making with my other business, and now this is mine, and I don't have to work for anybody else. And I have paid my dues to toxic agency life. I am quite glad to be doing it on my own. There's a whole bunch of people now, including my accountants, are just like, oh, you can expand and hire people. I'm just like, no, I'm all right. I can do it on my own. I'd rather do it on my own. I've had team members and staff members before, and it's wonderful, and I've heard from them that I can be a really fair and good manager. Whether or not they were lying to me, I don't know. But something I've learned along the way is the moment that you start becoming a manager and stop doing what you love and are truly good at, even if you are a good manager, is the moment that you start not enjoying what you're doing anymore. And I don't necessarily enjoy being a manager, if that makes sense. I enjoy doing the work that I do. So I'm quite happy to doing what I'm doing, and yeah, it's fine. But yes, that was by far the most challenging time of my life in recent years, basically. It was very, very emotional. I'm a person that likes to please in the sense of never trying to never get into trouble. So that was bad for me. And the true friends shone through at that stage of my life, which was great. Next question. I'm kind of looking, I'm hoping my battery doesn't die. I'm very low on battery. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to finish filming before the battery dies. If not, you might get a bit of a weird cut. This person says they don't necessarily have a question, but they've got admiration. Thank you so much. They've said they've recently been diagnosed with, I'm assuming, DHD. I'm assuming, is that autism with ADHD as well in? I might be wrong. And I've started to notice a lot of plant content creators seem to be neurodivergent. I'm with you. Like there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people that think that I might be. I haven't looked into it. For all the people that are saying, "Are you?" I'm just, I don't know. I haven't checked myself out. It might just be having the red car syndrome when you buy a red car and suddenly you see it everywhere. Works for every type of color of car. But I also feel that it makes sense. A lot of neurodivergent people would be attracted to plant care. Caring for plants can be very soothing and therapeutic. Is this something I've noticed too? Yes, I have. And I also talk to a lot of people, not necessarily just content creators, but also planting people. And yes, there's a lot of people that it kind of makes sense. There's something within the hobby for everybody under the neurodivergent spectrum, I think. And do they? I'm also, and I don't know if this is necessarily an unpopular opinion, I think that especially when you start thinking of neurodivergency as a spectrum, I think that a lot of people tend to be somewhere on that spectrum anyway. It's just depending on where they land within that spectrum. But there's something in the plant community for people that want to get super kind of obsessive and hyper fixated and learn about things. There is a space for that. There's a space for people that have got like tactile things, or people that need that quiet space. There's a space for everybody. And I think because it's kind of welcoming of that, and because it's a solitary hobby a lot of the times, you can just kind of cut up the world and do your own thing. So I think, yes, you are 100% right. It is a space that you do get a lot of neurodivergent people. You said obviously you've recently been diagnosed. I'm hoping that helps. And maybe, because I've had a lot of people that were diagnosed with autism specifically in their adult years, and they were saying, if anything else, it just helped them go, so many things make sense now. And also the relief of not having to mask as much anymore. So I understand that it can be a very emotional or cathartic stage of your life when you get that kind of confirmation, so to speak. So I'm hoping that it's going well for you. So yes, personal questions now, fully personal questions, and let's finish with the repot. I'm also looking at the camera. I've got 14% battery. Hopefully it will last. So personal questions now. This person's like, damn, I always forget what I wanted to ask you at open Q&As. It's fine. There will be a monthly thing. So hopefully you'll come up with another thing next time. But what is my favorite band from Cyprus? This really threw me. Honestly, I don't know. And I don't know how many people know this. When I lived in Cyprus as a small child, I did leave when I was very young. I think I left the island 13, 14 or 15. I can't remember now off the top of my head. I'm that old. And I don't think I was really into bands. And I don't know if I even knew of any bands in Cyprus, if that makes sense. I don't know. This has also got a bit of squishy root. This is, I think, just a Magnificum, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not entirely sure. There is my Forgetii that wasn't Forgetii-ing in there, but I don't think it's this one. I don't know. We shall figure out what plant this is when it starts growing a bit more, because these leaves are not fantastic. So, with bands, I don't know any bands from Cyprus, I don't think. I know maybe some Greek bands, because I spent my teenage years in Greece more so than I did in Cyprus. But I can tell you some Cypriot music artists that I enjoyed when I was there, and I'm a bit of a Eurovision fan, and you can see where this is going, especially knowing my age. Alexia was one that I enjoyed back then. There's obviously like Anavisi and all these things, who's now like a Greek singer as well. But a lot of these people, Evridiki was another one. Like you can tell my age now. But I don't know if I knew bands, so hopefully that answers your question. It's like more kind of music artists rather than bands, if that makes sense. And for the Greeks out there, I've possibly like refreshed some of your memories as well, because some of these Cypriot artists were also artists for a while in Greece, or still are in Greece, in terms of them still being kind of current singers like Anavisi and things like that. But yes, I don't. Hopefully that answers your question. I'm sorry that I couldn't give you a band, so to speak, but I don't know if I know any Cypriot bands. I know some of the Greek bands, the Endichna, but that was really never my type of music. A lot of my really close friends in Cyprus was really into that, but it didn't really do it for me too much. For the people that are based in maybe the UK and Europe that don't understand what I'm talking about now when I'm saying like things like Endichna, and I know the people in Greece and Cyprus are going to get really offended by me saying this. The best way that I can describe it would be more like indie bands. And it's not even just that. Is it indie bands? Yeah, like maybe Britpop kind of falls into that category a bit as well. I don't know, but it's a very unique thing to like the Greek music scene, and it translates to of the arts or artistic music. So it's slightly known as deeper music, or kind of more, there's more emotion behind it. I don't know how to describe it. As I said, I wasn't a fan, so hopefully that answers your question. Sorry, before I go down a rabbit hole. Last question. We're doing well with battery. We're doing well with battery. I mean, it's not a question, it's more of a comment. I love my plants, but I also kind of want more time in my life for non-plant stuff. Right. This is a safe space. Let's talk. And I get this. This hobby can get a lot. Trust me, I know you've seen my house tour, and hopefully by the time this comes out, it will definitely, because it's coming out today, you'll see my conservatory tour. It's a lot. It's a lot. And the thing that we all need to remember is, if it gets too much, and especially for a lot of us that did this as a bit of an escape from other things, whatever the escape might be, it might be quiet time, it might be alone time, it might be all of these things. If that is gone, and this just becomes a thing that weighs you down, and a thing that you need to do over other things that you think you're going to enjoy, it's okay to walk away. It is completely, not that you need my permission, but I'm just telling you it's okay to walk away. Just walk away. Walk away, and if you miss it, you'll come back to it. You'll re-find it. But if you're kind of getting to the stage now where you're just like, that you love your plants, but you want more time to do other non-planty stuff, do that. Do the other non-planty stuff. If it will make you happy. The plants were never there to become a burden, and if they're becoming a burden, there's a problem that needs to be addressed. You don't even need to get rid of everything. You don't even need to work away fully. Be utterly brutal and bring your collection down to 5 plants, 10 plants max. And that becomes a bit more manageable, and you get to keep some of that joy that you had, because you'll keep your favorites. And the rest of them, like, give them away, sell them, do whatever you want to do. And if you need to come back to them, you can always come back to them. You can always restart the collection. There is something with anything you do in life that the end goal, the destination isn't it. The journey is there. You can restart that journey at any time, hopefully, if that makes sense. But I'm here if you need to chat. Do drop me a DM if you're kind of struggling a bit with this. And there's a lot of people in the community as well that are more than happy to talk you through this, because we've all had moments where we've either burnt out because of plants or close to burnout, and we all deal with it differently. But reach out. There's going to be people that are going to be more than happy to help. But yes, on that note, hopefully that's a bit more of a positive note than a bit of a down necessarily. But on that note, I shall let you be here just before my battery dies. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon. And I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.